Welcome.
Hi.
How do you communicate?
Yeah. Same for you guys. I was nervous that I wasn't going to be able to log into this thing.
I was nervous too. I was
Juan,
like,
Juan, I hope everything's okay back at home.
yeah, it's all right. It'll be okay.
Good. Well, I'm excited for a fun session.
Yeah. Is the music too loud?
Maybe a little. Maybe turn it down just a smidge.
Yeah.
There you go. That's perfect.
Cool.
Do we just start ourselves right at the 30 or what?
I think we need to wait for, Mariel was saying that yesterday she dialed into a few sessions and it took a bit for folks to dial in. So we might need to start at like 5 after.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was jamming out there for a minute.
Mm.
I haven't heard some good music in a minute. I'm going to get that soundtrack right now.
It's really good.
I'm already got it. It's already coming down.
Best music to clean to on a Sunday morning.
There's nothing that I miss more than listening to Mexican music at the absolute. I don't even know if the radio could even go any louder at my grandma's house on a Sunday. Just blaring through the neighborhood, man.
Yeah. Music has a way of bringing people together. It's really sweet. Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I see more people rolling in. Looks like there's 11 people.
Awesome.
Hey, everyone. Hi, Maricela. Welcome, everyone joining. Please enjoy some In the Heights music while we wait to get started.
Maricela says, "Here we go."
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I see we have a moderation panel. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
For those joining, we're just going to give it a minute or two. We hope you all enjoy some music from In the Heights.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Hi, Martine. Good to see you.
I don't know what that was, but it wasn't me.
Uh-oh.
What? A sound?
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't hear it.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. I was sitting here. I was like, I'm coming on camera, so they don't see that was me.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah. That feels like an okay time to start.
It's a good segue.
Good segue.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Let me start presenting. Hola todos! Welcome, everyone. I am Mariel, and I'm here with my friends. We're about to start our session, Rompiendo Barreras, Finding the Leader para Seguir el Sueño. And we're going to kick it off with some introductions before we really dive in. Juan, why don't you intro yourself?
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Juan Fernandez. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have been building IT companies and corporate infrastructures and large corporate entities for the last 27 years of my life. And I'm really excited to be here today to share some stories, to be able to encourage people, and to also talk a little bit about some of my journey and how I got to where I'm at. Teresa?
Thanks, Juan. I'm Teresa Gonzalez Swinton, and I'm a senior sales director at Microsoft, focused on Microsoft advertising. I work specifically within our retail sector, so work with retail clients. Think of brands like Kohl's and Macy's, and I work with them to advertise their products on Microsoft properties like Bing, LinkedIn, MSN, etc. I've been with Microsoft for just over 6 years, but I've worked in the digital marketing space for the bulk of my career. I am based in warm and sunny Chicago, and I am super excited to be here today. Thank you all for having me. Mariela, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mariel Quintana. I'm currently a content producer on the marketing team at Square. I'm based in the Bay Area, but our team is distributed all over. And what I do as a content producer, to simplify it, is I work with creative teams to tell real stories of the sellers on the Square platform. And previously, before Square, I was in New York and working in fintech as a UX designer. And before that, I got into tech through customer support, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. Okay.
Awesome. Well, now that we've gotten through introductions, we'll jump straight into our session. But first, before we go there, I wanted to start with a question. Does anyone know what 8% stands for? Feel free to put your responses in the chat. No bad guesses. Thinking. Well, I will spoil the surprise. So 8% is the percent of Hispanic and Latinx in the tech industry in the US. Yes, Narissa, very, very close. This is for all of Hispanic and Latinx. We make up 18% of the US population, but only 8% of the tech industry. We over-index in other sectors like service and farming, but we severely under-index in tech. So there's a huge disparity, and that's really why we're here today. Today, Juan, Mariel, and I are here to talk about our respective journeys, how we broke through these socioeconomic barriers that exist so that we can make our sueños a reality. We'll share our learnings and advice that we would give to our younger selves, and with the goal of further helping our comunidad. And since that is the focus of today's summit, we want to make sure that you walk away with some helpful nuggets of wisdom. But before we go there, it's important for us to acknowledge how we got our start, because cultura plays such an important role for all of us in our upbringing. So first, we'll start by sharing some of our humble beginnings. Juan, do you want to kick us off with that?
Well, from my perspective, I started off, in a very small town in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And, my grandfather, I was homeschooled traditionally. And my grandmother was my teacher, and my grandfather was also my teacher. My grandmother was teaching me math and trigonometry and, algebra and all these other concepts. And my grandfather was teaching me how to build bricks and sell them and build homes with them. And for me, starting off, I was very young and was learning at a much different rate. I I grew up thinking that, my culture, the only real thing, as much as I really wanted to be something when I grew up, I really didn't feel like I could be anything. Everyone kept saying, you can do it. You could be whatever you want. You could be whatever you want. But whatever you want had limits. And I felt like, even though they were saying that to me, there was no one there to help me get anywhere that I would wanted to go. And so, I could only see as far as my surroundings and my culture and my people and my grandfather and my families, and a lot of that was trades, so for me, it was really interesting as I was growing up, because I technically should have been, and I was for many years, in trades. I started off, I had my own landscaping company when I was 16 years old. I thought I would always be a manual laborer. I never really thought that I would ever really have an opportunity to do any of this stuff. What I do today just absolutely just blows my mind, considering where I started. And, we were looking at some of the pictures of our humble beginnings, and it actually made me draw a little tear, remembering how lost and how scared I was back then. And so humble beginnings for me is a very, very, very near and dear piece and close to my heart.
Thanks for sharing that, Juan. And I've got similar experiences too as you. I'm first generation Mexican American. My parents immigrated here in the 70s, so I was raised in a very traditional Mexican household. And I have a large immediate family. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. 4 of my older siblings were born in Mexico. My sister and I were born in Chicago. And we didn't have a lot of resources growing up, both from a wealth and education standpoint. My parents were not educated because the small town that they grew up in Mexico didn't offer schooling beyond 7th grade. So their only options were move to a bigger town or just start working. So they started working. My dad's first job when he first arrived to the US was at a berry farm in California, picking strawberries, earning next to nothing. But he saved every single penny that he earned so that eventually my mom and my siblings could come join him. And eventually, when he saved enough to sustain a family in the US, my family moved to Chicago. And I was born on the southwest side of Chicago in a neighborhood called La Villita, where the population is mostly Mexican or other Hispanics. But this neighborhood was the closest thing to home that my family had since leaving Mexico. And upon arriving to Chicago, my dad started working in construction, and he remained a hardworking blue-collar worker, kind of like where you thought your path would lead you, Juan. He kind of followed that path for the remainder of his career. And my mom stayed home to watch us kids. And while we didn't have a lot in terms of wealth or resources, I still look back and I still feel very fortunate to have been raised in a family that was so rich in love and support. They weren't educated and they couldn't guide me through things like school, but I knew that they loved me so much. So that to me means a lot. And I know they made a lot of sacrifices for our family to have a good life. And so I'm super, super grateful for all of that. And the photo that you see here was taken in the 80s, and we were on our way to Mexico. So every winter break, when others vacationed to Florida or Hawaii, we went to Mexico every single year, and we would drive there. We would take a 3-day trip down to Mexico to see my grandparents and my extended family. And this station wagon was my dad's pride and joy. And somehow he managed to fit our entire family of 8 in this car. I don't know how he did it. This is before seatbelts were required. And I'm the little girl there in the front of the picture. And in that moment, and really during any of the road trips that we would take, I really dreaded them. I hated them. They were long days. They were uncomfortable. But now as I reflect back, I'm really grateful that I had that experience, because it's probably not something I will ever do as an adult. So my kids won't have that experience, but I'm glad that I got that exposure. I got to see and experience a lot. I got to see the stark difference that you see when you cross the Mexico border. Between, roads, homes, and just generally resources between the US are just vastly different. And once you cross the Mexico border and you drive through the small towns, we would see kids running up to the car, offering to wash our windshield for spare change, or trying to sell us candy, or just generally begging for money. So my mom would always come prepared with snacks and loose change that she would hand out to the kids when we would stop to fill up gas. She would also pack up old clothes that we had outgrown and give these kids bags of clothes because, we saw poverty firsthand as we would make our drive down. And so for me as a kid, that was really eye-opening to see kids of my age in situations that were far worse than my own. So these road trips gave me a really healthy dose of perspective and humanity, and I'm super grateful for that. So that's a little bit about my humble beginnings. Maria, let's hear about yours.
Yeah. I have a slightly different story. I'm sort of the 2.0 in the group here. My parents were the ones who were first generation, I guess. They both came to the US from Puerto Rico as young children. And as I reflect a little bit, there's like a very complicated history between the US and Puerto Rico. And so just our status of first gen, is that true? Like we've always been citizens, so we've always been born here. Just something to think about and ponder and reflect on. So I don't know if I'm first gen or second gen, but what I do know is that there is a lot of tenacity on both sides of my family, and they had that and held on to that while they were rooting down in the Central Jersey area, which is where I am from. And here is a picture of my dad and my grandfather when they first experienced snow, which must have been a stark difference to the Caribbean climate of Puerto Rico. Talking a little bit more about my mom's side, she also came from humble beginnings. Her only form of comfort was a Sound of Music record, but then she wasn't allowed to play it at all because it was too American. Her dad took it away from her, which is sad. I don't know if you can tell in this photo of my dad, but they could only afford the bare necessities, and he made that clear to me growing up, and it really helped me value what I have now. But a little anecdote was when my dad was little, he didn't have any toys, so he had to play with ants outside. And growing up, he would tell us these stories, and we would also find ways to be frugal as a family. It wasn't until I went to college that I realized when you go to get takeout at a fast food place, you can get your own drink. I grew up always being forced to share my soda because they were free refills. So yeah, that all of this is just like very interesting to see how it's impacted my own life. And coming back to right now in my own career, although my grandfather and my grandmother were both illiterate on my dad's side, they instilled a really strong sense of education in my dad, who then passed it on to me and my siblings. And here I am today, like a product of my environment. My parents successfully climbed the social ladder, and I have 2 degrees and a stable job in tech that I'm very, very grateful for. And I'm also very, very aware of the privilege in my life and how I didn't choose to live here. This is just like the life I have. Didn't choose to be born. And I'm just so thankful. So yeah, on to our next segment, Paving the Path. I will give it to Juan to speak to.
Well, I think the thing for me, when we start talking about the path and how we got here, right? I'm just like everybody else. We all started off somewhere with a dream. I just so happened to have a chance to make that decision. And I remember the day that I did it. I used to, a lot of people laugh when they hear this about me, but I used to mow lawns for money, and I used to have paper route, and I walked around town in some of the darker areas of Albuquerque selling jewelry, and people they'd be like, Juan, what are you doing? You're gonna get robbed, you're carrying around jewelry, like what are you doing? And I'm like, just trying to make a living, And I remember thinking, I'm doing things. Even though I have 3 jobs, I'm making okay money. I'm I'm never going to get anywhere if I don't start doing something like really good. So I went and I did a little bit of I was selling jewelry to this one lady, and I remember as I sold the jewelry to her, she's like, you know what, you'd be really good at this. You should come work for me. And it was a loan company. And so sure enough, I went to go work for this loan company, this lady. The next thing I know, she goes, you know what? Everybody's paying you back so much, Juan, and I don't understand why. She goes, nobody gets paid back their loans like you do. Why? And I said, because I treat people like people. And then she said, you know what? I'm going to give you a store. Let's see what you do with a store. I'm 18 years old, and they gave me a store, right? And so next thing you know, I grow a store. I got employees. It's the best thing in the world. And I said, you know what? This just isn't for me. This isn't what I want to do. I need to do this computer thing. So I quit this job. Man, let me tell you what, I thought my family was going to kill me. And I had already had a family, right? So I got married really young. I was 18 and my wife was 16. So like this was the first time that we ever had money, ever had money. And like, she was upset. She was like, babe, I don't understand. Like, we just bought a car. I remember she was so upset with me. She's like, I'm with you on this, but I hope you're not wrong. And I was like, it'll be fine. Trust me. So I went to night school and I went and got certifications, and I worked at a little company called AOL when the internet first started. And I remember listening to people. I worked in the cancellations department for the first 2 years while I worked there. And I was going to school at night and I'd work during the day. And that's how it all started for me, you know. And I really wanted to be the best that I possibly could be. So, you know, I said, look, if I'm going to make a run at something and I'm going to be good at something, I'm going to work my ass off at this. And, you know, it was interesting. I went and I was doing all these certifications, and then it came time to take the test and I failed. And everybody that told me that I was doing the stupid thing and, you know, you're not smart enough to be in computers and you never went to school and you don't come from a smart family. We're not smart people. We don't do stuff like this. You're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be doing this manual labor stuff. That's what we do. Our family's manual laborers. I was pretty down on myself. There was a real moment there where I thought, maybe I'm not made for this, you know? And I was going to quit. There's that moment when I failed that test, I thought for sure that's it. I'm not smart enough. I've been lying to myself. I believed in myself for what? And my wife was the only person, her and my grandmother said, don't you dare give up. You go take that test again. And I remember going to take it. And I remember what I said to myself. And the reason that I failed the first time was not because I wasn't smart enough. It's because I was not studying the concepts and not putting enough time into really understanding everything I needed to at the time. When I went back and I studied the right way, instead of trying to take shortcuts, I went and killed that test. And then I went and killed every single test after that. And like 250 some certifications later, I come to find out there was no limit. And you know, one of the funnest parts of everything that went on there is that I actually write that test now. I actually physically write on a blank piece of paper and write the A+ test for my CompTIA. And I'll never forget that day because it was full circle for me as I thought back to the moment when I failed. That if I would have just said, you're not good enough one more time, I'd have been digging ditches. I would have been back laboring. But that little bit of encouragement from my family and from my wife and my grandmother is what really helped me push through that. And that's one of the things that paved the path for me.
That's amazing, Juan. Loved your story and loved how it all came full circle. I can talk a little bit about how a bit more about, paving my own path and breaking through some of those barriers too. So I mentioned a little while ago that, I came from from a family where my parents were uneducated, and as a result, they prioritized work and family values over education. They really took pride in us being hard workers, and they really didn't push us when it came to school. Of course, they wanted us to go to school, but there wasn't this pressure to do really well, to excel, to grow. I think my parents would have just been perfectly fine if we decided to just find a job as soon as we graduated high school. So I'm the first in my family to get a 4-year degree from a university, and first to get an advanced degree when I received my MBA in 2013. And I'll never forget when I was explaining to my dad, I was stressed out, I was studying for the GMAT, and I was explaining to him why I was spending so much time in the library, why I was studying so much. And he looked at me with just this sorrow and confusion. And he was like, "Mija, ¿por qué?" Like, just did not understand why I was doing this to myself. I graduated college, I had a decent job. In his eyes, I had already exceeded his expectations. He thought I was like set. And I don't blame him. He didn't know any better. So that just kind of gives you an idea of like the environment I was raised in, loaded with these socioeconomic barriers. And I learned at a pretty early age that when it came to education, like I wasn't going to necessarily get that guidance at home. It was going to be up to me to figure it out and leverage my comunidad to help me, because I knew that with my parents, as much as I tried to explain to them like why something was important to me, they didn't fully understand it. And I didn't do it on my own. They say it takes a village, and it certainly does. My first language was Spanish, so I didn't learn English until I was 5. And I credit my oldest sister, Gabi, for helping me learn English. She would sit all my homemade Cabbage Patch dolls, because we couldn't afford the real dolls. So my mom would make me Cabbage Patch dolls. She would line them up, and we would pretend to be in school. And she would pretend they were other classmates, and that's how she taught me English. So I credit her for helping me, just giving me that bit of like guidance and interest in learning at an early age. And I also had teachers along the way throughout elementary school who believed in me, and they instilled that confidence that I wasn't getting at home. And it's this confidence that helped me realize that I want to achieve more than my parents were able to. And I know ultimately that's what they would want. They just didn't even know what was out there. They were ignorant in a way because their own worlds were so small. They just didn't have exposure or experience beyond, what they knew. And so I try to use that same energy and motivation to get me through anything in life, right? Whether it's my career or education. And now I try to make every effort to pay that forward. I've mentioned I have a large family. It has grown over time. I have 19 nieces and nephews. And I feel a very deep sense of responsibility to help this younger generation any way that I can. Because I didn't have that guidance, and they might not necessarily have that guidance either. And so I want to be there to support them throughout these important decisions that they make as young adults. And I'm happy to say that I have helped my nephew land a career in a digital marketing agency, and one of my nieces is now at Microsoft. So super, super proud of both of them. And I'm also helping 2 of my nephews who are juniors at college right now navigate internships in tech. So my ultimate goal is that this younger generation of my family gets involved in tech, so that we can continue to boost this 8%, right? Like, there's not many of us in this industry. We need to keep growing. So I really am trying to do my part because we need more of us here. So with that, Mariela, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks. I'll be a little quick on this one. So I too am, like, similar to Teresa, I'm the youngest of my family, and I wouldn't be in tech if it weren't for my older siblings who are always guiding me throughout my education, also my career. In undergrad, I studied gender studies and public policy, so I thought I would be a professional activist. I moved to DC, but got tired of unpaid internships, so I turned to my sisters. I said, what do I do? How do I get started in my career? And one of them, who was already in tech, suggested I get my foot in the door at a tech company. And the way to do that for her, and what worked out for me, was through customer support. So my first job was in customer support at a company called ClassPass, which was much smaller at the time. Shout out to any ClassPass alum who are out there. Then after my time at ClassPass, I moved on to fintech on a whim because a recruiter had just reached out to me, and I figured this is for crypto, an exciting new space. I could just take a risk right now in my life, so might as well do that. And it was while I was in fintech that I really recognized how vast socioeconomic class differences can be, especially in the finance space, which is unfortunate. In the office, I'd hear colleagues saying things like, "Oh, I don't know which Michelin star restaurant to go to" on like a random Wednesday when there was no special event. Or they talk about their vacation homes or their lavish weekends going skiing, and all of this was so foreign to me. I like didn't know that someone can have this much disposable income. And at first I was really resentful, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's all of this white privilege all around me, I can't escape it. But then I realized, you know what, if they can be rich without batting an eye, so can I'm like done feeling guilty about money. And I am very aware that there's a pay gap that exists between women and men, and especially between Latinas. And FYI to the crowd, Latina Equal Pay Day is coming up October 21st, so know your worth. But yeah, just all of that, being surrounded by all these like rich people, I guess, made me realize like I want to be rich too. And I'm going to stay in tech, and I'm going to represent this small community and then bring everyone around with me. And that's why I'm speaking here today. And that's why I dedicate myself to helping others and like learning about their personal finances. And that's why I really only now want to work at fintech companies that economically empower those outside of the mainstream, companies that empower people like me and you all here. And so I'm just trying to pave the way now. I'm still young in my career, but I like to talk candidly about finances and how to build wealth, and just the importance of familia and like supporting everyone in my family and my extended community. So yeah, I guess that's where I want to end there. I am like dedicated to sharing my knowledge and helping everyone around me. Which brings us to our next segment, consejos. How else do we want to share our knowledge? And what advice do we have for the people visiting? Juan, you want to start?
So I got one, right? And this is one that is very near and dear to my heart. And the reason it's so near and dear to my heart is because it was my daughter. And during the time, you know, she's been around me a lot, and she hears me speak all the time, to almost to nausea, right? As she calls it. She's like, "Dad, I don't even listen to you anymore, but I do need your help right now." And I was like, "What? You need my help? How can I help?" And so as she asked for my help, she goes, "Dad, I want to apply for this job. I've been working at Natural Grocers now for some time, and I want to apply for a management position, but I don't have any management experience." And I looked her dead in the face and I said, "You know, that is probably one of the hardest things that you'll ever have to figure out how to get, is experience in something that you don't have." And I said, "So I've been here before, and let me ask you a couple questions. So you say you have no management experience, right?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "So talk me through what happens during your day, like from start to finish, like when you first get up to everything, just give it to me." She says, "Well, I get up, you know, I get ready, I go to work, you know, I talk with the team when I get there. You know," I said, "When you get there, do you work with customers? Do you have good conversations with them? And do they give you any feedback?" You know, and she's like, "Yeah." And she starts telling me. And I said, so when you're there, you're working with the team collectively, right? And, you know, and you guys do good things for the store, and ultimately you guys are profitable because you're doing all the right things, right? She's like, "Yeah." I said, "So let me say something to you. You managed to get up to get to work on time. You managed to get there and work collectively with the team. You managed to make a difference and make a customer impact. You managed to make the company money. I think you're a manager. And she looks at me and she goes, it can't be that easy. And I said, it is that easy. You got the job. And I said, just talk about it just like that. And she goes, Dad, it can't be that easy. And I said, try it. She tried it, got it. She managed to get the job. And then not only did she get the job, but she also then got hand selected to go and fly to Denver for a year to get trained to be a store manager. And she just got her own store in Spokane. And I couldn't be more happy. And I think that for a lot of us, we hit that wall and we just can't get past barriers sometimes because we're not thinking about things the right way. You know, one of the things for me, if I'm giving you any advice, is believe in yourself. Just believe in yourself. You got to be your own sunshine someday. You know, there's not always going to be somebody there cheering you on. Life isn't people cheering you on. There's something that I will say that I did, and this is very hard for me to do. You take a piece of paper and you put the top 10 people that you know next on it. Put their names. And if they're encouraging you, they're challenging you, they're pushing you to do more and wanting you the best for you, put a plus next to their name. And if they're not doing those things, put a minus next to them. It may be tough to find out that our family may not be our biggest champions. They sometimes may be our biggest hindrance. Trust me, I come from that where it seems like they don't necessarily want you to do good sometimes. And I don't understand why, but it just feels that way. But when you start surrounding yourself with people that are truly invested in you and in your well-being and in your success, it's amazing what can happen. That's my advice.
Yeah, great advice, Juan. I love that notion of building that personal board of directors who have your back no matter what. My advice is similar to what you shared in terms of, coaching your daughter applying for this job. And my advice or my consejo is to be willing to take risks. I think we as Hispanics tend to shy away from risk. We don't want to rock the boat too much, or at least that's how I was raised. And I think it stems from just a lot of fear. In my parents' case, they sacrificed so much to come to the States that they just wanted to do their job, keep their head down without standing out too much. And that was kind of like the advice that I was given throughout my life. As I mentioned, my dad didn't understand why I wanted to go back to school. In his mind, he thought I was just nuts. And that can negatively affect us. I've experienced firsthand getting in my own way. For example, if I'm looking for a new career and I don't necessarily check every box in the job description, I second guess if I should pursue it. Of like, well, I have these qualifications, but not these. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even go for it. And who knows how many doors I'm keeping shut by doing that to myself. So we shouldn't do that to ourselves. We need to know our self-worth, and we need to have that confidence to take these risks and remind ourselves. I have to constantly remind myself that not everybody checks every box. You just need to have that confidence to, put yourself forth and, put your name in the ring. And one quick story that I have around this is my first job out of college was in inside sales, and I was basically cold calling all day. It was awful. I was terrible at it. I hated it. I needed to get out. So I was just applying everywhere. I was applying to whatever job that wasn't inside sales that I could possibly land because I just needed out. So the first call I got was for a small digital marketing agency in Chicago. They were looking for interns. And at that point, I was like, I don't care. It's not sales. I'll do it. So I questioned if I should interview, though, because I looked at the job description and, there was like all these qualifications that I had zero experience in, Excel being one of them. And I thought, like, shoot, I don't know that I exactly fit. And I thought really long and hard if I should even go for the interview. Like I was second guessing if I should even take this interview, which is just ridiculous now that I look back on it. I ended up still applying and I interviewed for the role. During this interview, they did an Excel test. I didn't know that there would be a test. I told them, I lied, and I said that I knew Excel. I didn't. They tested me, and it was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life because I didn't know Excel at all. And so they were asking me the most basic of functions, like how do you auto sum a column? How do you expand a column? Things that are like super simple. They weren't asking me any, advanced functions. And I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't do any of them. So I kind of froze, but I just continued to approach the interview the best I possibly could. I mustered up as much courage as much confidence as I possibly could and finished out the interview. And I for sure thought like, all right, I didn't get this job. I got home, quickly started looking for other jobs on monster.com. That's what, we used back in the day to look for jobs. And so I'm looking for, something else because I blew it. And the next day I got a call that I got the job, which, that manager saw something, right? He clearly did not see the Excel skills, but hopefully he saw a little something that I could bring to the table. And really taking that interview was the best decision I could have made for my career because this opened the door into the digital marketing space and I haven't looked back. So had I let that risk aversion get the best of me, who knows where I would have landed? I may have not had this career. And I now work for the company that created Excel. And I use Excel 99% of the time, which is just all ironic. It kind of comes full circle for me too. So I would just encourage all of you to not get in your way. We tend to be our biggest enemy and try to just like put those voices inside your head, put them to rest because as Juan said, we can do it. We can do it and we have the ability to do it. We just have to believe in ourselves.
Cool. I will share a little bit of mine. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Juan. There are so many themes here. I'd say like risk is a huge one and like a moral dilemma of do you listen to your family? Do you not? Like who's in your corner? And I'd say my consejo kind of is related to all of that. So what I would say is support your familia and especially support them in times of these risky decision making moments where they don't know which path to take. And I say this because I know firsthand that their decisions will ripple into your life in unknown ways. And what I mean by this is I got into tech because of my older siblings, like I said earlier, but we really owe all of our careers, my sisters, all of us, we owe our careers to our first sister who paved the way, which was she moved to Silicon Valley in 2008, which was the height of the social media tech boom. And she was going to go work for a little company called Facebook. And my parents didn't want that. Neither did us because we were conditioned by my parents to always stay close to home, to never go too far away. California is on the other side of the country and too far was what everyone was saying. And what is this company even? But my sister did it anyway. She faced her fears and took that risk. And ultimately, her eyes were open to all of the tech that exists out there and kind of brought us all in gradually by mentoring us or helping us or hearing about another company and telling us to apply. So yeah, take risks, even though they're scary, and no path is clearly paved wherever you go. And it's important to just know that and be ready for it and accept it and be ready for the rough patches, the smooth patches and all of it. So we are nearing our time together, everyone. We would like to open it for questions if there are any. We also are sharing our contact information here. Take a screenshot so you can email us if you so wish to. Any other last words from our panel, or type your questions in the chat, peeps?
Well, I'm really looking forward to anybody that needs any help. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm always doing something very interesting or fun. I'm trying to always build encouraging opportunities for others. there's a lot of great resources for you guys that are out there looking to get into tech. If I could mention just one, might be as CompTIA for those of you that are looking for a technical track to look to get going in some technical aspect. But there are lots of resources out there available for you guys. So connect with us, and we know maybe we can give you a hand if you're struggling trying to find your way. This was fun, you guys.
This was fun.
It was.
I hope everyone else had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all for your participation and your engagement, and also sharing in the chat, similar experiences. I think there's comfort in knowing that we're not alone. And so it's great to be surrounded by a group like we have today. And again, the goal is to keep rising that 8%. We need to be able to keep up in this industry.
Come on, you guys, get with it. Let's go.
Time to go to work.
Yes.
I love it. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, you guys. Thank you for joining me, and thanks for having me as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Techqueria. And everyone out there who's looking to hire, Square has a little expo box. Go visit them. There's lots of recruiters happy to help you, happy to talk to you.
Same. Happy to connect with anyone who's interested in getting into tech or working at Microsoft. Thank you, everyone, again. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Gracias.
Bye.